This is Why Small Business Matters from Northumbria University, supporting small businesses with the Help to Grow management programme.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Why Small Business Matters. My name is Matt Sutherland and I'm part of a team at Northumbria University who's spent the last decade working with over 400 SMEs, listening to their experiences, helping them overcome their challenges and celebrating their successes. This podcast is an extension to this activity and provides SMEs and entrepreneurs the chance to share their stories and what it means to be a successful SME in 2021. Today, I'm joined by Craig Skillicorn, Northumbria alumni and Managing Director at DDC Electronics. Craig is a leader. In fact, he's a good one, with a strong track record of growing business with a focus on people and change management. Craig has been involved in the aerospace industry for more than 25 years, holding roles at large and small businesses, including Rolls-Royce and Esterline. It goes without saying that Craig's services are in high demand, as he has a proven approach to improving company performance. And perhaps the most significant point, he travels to work on a hovercraft. Welcome, Craig. In the early 1990s, you studied an international business management degree here at Northumbria. But what led you to make the move into the aerospace industry?
Yeah, that's right. I had a great 4 years up in the northeast. And when I left the University of Northumbria, I guess I fell into aerospace. I knew I wanted to go into a business role, didn't really know which industry, didn't have any experience of that. And I was lucky enough to get a position on a commercial graduate training scheme with Rolls-Royce. So it's a fantastic grounding into business with, a big organisation, lots of support, lots of people development in that role. And I was working with airlines around the world. So in my early 20s, I was selling aeroplane engines, which is the coolest job in the world for a young guy to have. And I got the bug from that. So I've spent nearly all of my career in the aerospace industry since then. Lots of travelling, and I've been lucky enough actually, going back to my early Rolls-Royce days, I always looked for the opportunities to travel to places that I would never normally go. And you would get some people who wanted to look after Mallorca Airlines, because you get a trip out to. I was looking for which airlines in Siberia, because I'm not going there on holiday, so that's where I want to go to see a different part of the world. So I've been lucky enough to go to most corners of the world in the aerospace industry. It's been fantastic for that.
And you must have met an awful lot of different people as well, and exposed to lots of different cultures as well, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, that's in my Rolls-Royce time. There was a heavy development, a heavy investment in its people on cultural training, which is great. When you're doing a contract negotiation with someone from the Middle East or someone from Russia, it's a different approach you have to take. And I think you keep a little bit of that through all of my career, because it's not really just people in Russia are different to people in the Middle East. It's just people are different. And, and having that cultural awareness that actually you work with people in different ways is translatable, whether you're leaving the country or not in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Who are the easiest people to deal with then, Craig? Who are the most difficult, I should say?
The most difficult one I ever did actually was actually in Siberia, in this Russian town that was a 3-hour flight from Moscow. And one of those flights where you go in through the kind of back end of the plane, and there was a bench down each side, and you strap on a little lap belt. There's the babushka with the chickens on a knee. It was really like that. And I was doing a contract negotiation with an airline out there, but they couldn't speak a word of English, so it was all through a translator, which is really difficult to do. And I had a Russian translator with me as well. And there were a group of people sat around the room. This must have been around the early 2000s. And I said to her, we're at a break, and I said, who are the people sat around the room? Because they haven't said anything. And she said, it's the KGB, because you're a Western businessman. They have to watch what's going on in the business. So it's such a weird experience. And negotiating a contract with a very kind of Eastern Bloc Russian organization through a translator was that was a challenge as well.
Yeah, you obviously said the right things because you made it onto this podcast years later. Which is So actually, you must have taken those experiences with you, as you say, all through your career. And you've been in the aerospace industry for nearly 25 years. Tell us a little bit more about your current MD role, please, at DDC Electronics.
Yeah, so DDC Electronics, it's as a business we've existed under different names since the 70s. an electronics organisation. We predominantly make power supplies that are used in the defence industry and in the commercial aerospace industry. So probably the most recognisable use of our products for people is when you sat on a plane and you bang your leg against the annoying box on the side of the seat. That's a power supply that's providing power to the in-flight entertainment system, phone charging, laptop charging system that's within the seat. So that's where our big commercial aerospace opportunities are, and where our current product range is in-seat power, in-flight entertainment power. On the defence side, it's power supplies that are used in all sorts of defence applications, fighter jets, tanks, military vehicles, missiles, which is about half our business, and the other half being in the commercial aerospace, predominantly in-flight entertainment power. So I joined DDC just over 18 months ago, and actually joined as the commercial director. And about 6 months ago, the MD got promoted within the group and moved off to a different position, and I was lucky enough to get the role. So it's great. We're a fairly small business. There's 105 people work in the business, all on one site, based on the Isle of Wight. So I'm lucky enough. I commute to work on a hovercraft every day, which not a lot of people can say. So that's a really fun. The novelty never wears off. I get a hovercraft to work. It's great. So we're a fairly small company. We've got really great people. There's a really good leadership team here. But we have an ownership structure that means we're part of a bigger company based in New York that's about 500 people, which itself is part of a much bigger organisation in the US, big aerospace company that's kind of has 13,000 people work for it. It's several $1 billion of turnover a year. So we're in this great position of we have a business to run, but we're in an ownership structure of ultimately being part of a huge organisation with nearly 15,000 people in it.
And I think that's a really interesting bit, isn't it? That because we're a small business podcast and you are a small business, as you say, but you have this really interesting dynamic that you also are part of a bit of a layer cake, these bigger organisations. How does that dynamic work? Is this the first time you encountered it? What's it like? Yeah,
it's really interesting. And I've been in similar organisations before, but actually not in this leadership role. And I think it's different when you're in the leadership role. There's definitely two ways of managing the business. So in my position where I am now, I consider that this is our business to run, and we're a small business with 104 people in it. And we operate. How do we best run this business? How do we best deliver on this site the best business we can? But I have to do that within a framework of a US parent that's main driver is hit your numbers, because that's what any business needs to do. And it's the fascinating bit for me and the challenging bit for me is translating hit the numbers into how do you run a small business, and that's it's an unusual setup. We're doing so much here around the culture of the organisation, and the kind of people side of business that actually isn't a conversation I have with the US parent company that frequently, because the conversations with them are how are you hitting your numbers. In my view, you hit the numbers through your people, so they're aligned. It's how you get there, and for me, it's very much about how do we develop a culture and environment here that gives people the ability to hit the numbers.
Because you're right, good people do business with people, and of course you've had a really rich history with working with so many different people and cultures within your previous work experience. You must be drawing upon that here when you're operating this new MD role.
Yeah, for sure. And it's by background I'm a sales guy, and I don't think you can be that and not like people. And personally, I find that a huge advantage in this role, because you can lead in different ways, can't you? You can lead by the numbers, or you can lead by the people. And a lot of people lead businesses by the numbers, and I just see it in a different way. And it's great seeing people's reaction when you try and introduce that culture as well, because it's not. I find, I guess, surprisingly, it doesn't seem to be that common. That people lead businesses through their people. And
it's so interesting listening to you, Craig, when you say that parent company actually really aren't that interested in that side of the narrative. They are just interested in the bottom line. Do they they never really ask about the people side of it. It's just simply those calls, those conversations are around the figures.
Yeah, and it's I think they are interested in people, and actually the parent company does a lot in executive development and in succession planning as well. So the parent company owns 71 different aerospace companies, and they have a particular operating model. So they always look to promote from within for executive positions, because if you know how to run a business in their environment, you can go somewhere else and you can run the business in the same kind of way. So they do a lot of kind of people-oriented executive development and leadership development. I think the day-to-day running of the factory, they're just looking operationally, how are you running, how's that performing, and are you hitting the numbers? But so the culture of kind of growth within their organisation is there in people, but probably not in the detail of how we're doing this on a day-to-day basis and what we're trying to do for how people feel when they walk through the door in the morning.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I was going to ask you really about what do they get out of having your business here on the Isle of Wight? What are the advantages for them having this small business? But actually, one of the key advantages you've just revealed is that they can promote the talent. They can take talent within and they can take it up. They know the culture of their parent group and those sort of layered organisations. What other advantages do you think they have in having you as that smaller entity? Is there any other advantages, bar talent?
Yes, so they actually they like this kind of setup. So they like fairly small businesses, to the point where if they own a business that grows too big, they tend to split it. And one of the messages they give to me is act like a business owner. Here's the operating model. Here's how we want you to work. But it's your business, and they use be tenacious, have an entrepreneurial spirit, and act like a business owner, and that's what they want me to do. So they like these kind of organisations that we work with some of the key customers in the industry. We're on some of the key kind of programs in the industry. We've got highly engineered products. So we're exactly what they're looking for this kind of size and this kind of customer base and product.
I think that you touch on a really interesting point there, because identity as a business owner is something that we hear an awful lot from the SMEs that we speak to and deal with at Northumbria. What's your, it's certainly work in progress. We know that because you're fairly new in role, but what's your identity as a business owner? What have you been trying to put in place that sort of cements your perspective of running this business?
So for me, and I've mentioned it already, and the guys in my team get sick of hearing it. It's all about people. It's all about people. I think we all spend an inordinate amount of time at work, more than anywhere else, and it's it's a shame that not many people like their job, never mind love it, because we all spend so much time doing it, and I'm genuinely loving this job. And I think the identity that I want is that people walk through the door and it's somewhere they want to be, because it's surprisingly rare, despite the fact it's what we spend most of our time doing. It's surprising how few people like and love their job, and that's the environment I want to create. If people walk in the door in the morning and they want to be there and they enjoy working for that company and they like their job, the numbers come. The numbers come from that. And that's the identity that I want to create, is that this is a place people want to be.
I think you're right. When it's healthy and people enjoy going, it's fertile ground, isn't it? And the rest can follow. What are your goals then? You're in this new leadership role. It's exciting, and you're creating your own footprint and identity on DDC Electronics. Where next? What's next for the business? Where do you think it's going?
Yeah, so we're in an exciting time actually. In terms of that question of where next. So historically, the company's had some performance challenges in how it's performed for its customers. And there's been a lot of work over the last 2 or 3 years on making improvements. So, the number of quality issues we have is tremendously better than it was a few years ago. Our on-time delivery to customers is huge compared to what it was 2 or 3 years ago. So the team have done a fantastic job getting to that point, which means we're now really on the edge of, we need to now grow. So it's all in the last few years been about fix it, and now it's getting to the point where it's a more functional organisation. How do we grow? So, we're speaking to our existing customers about new opportunities. We're going looking for new customers for new opportunities. About 4 months ago, we won our first new development project in about 4 years, which is fantastic. It's fantastic. Again, it's fantastic for the people. People in a lot of people in an organisation. One of their primary concerns is: have I got a job? Am I going to have a job in 6 months? Am I going to have a job in a year? So when you start winning new business, that grows in the atmosphere as well. So we just won our first development program a few months ago. That's just kicked off, and we've got 3, 4, 5 more in the pipeline that we're working with customers. And that's what's next for us is take advantage of the fact that we've operationally improved so much by winning new business and growing.
You're listening to Why Small Business Matters. Find out how Northumbria University can help your business thrive through the Help to Grow management program. Delivered by leading small business and enterprise experts from Northumbria University, with the support of leading figures from industry and experienced entrepreneurs. The program supports senior managers of small and medium-sized businesses to boost their business's performance, resilience, and long-term growth. The 12-week program is 90% funded by the government, and the fee payable by participants is £750, and has been designed to allow participants to complete it alongside full-time work. The in-depth, high-quality curriculum supports you to build your capabilities in leadership, innovation, digital adoption, employee engagement, marketing, responsible business, and financial management. By the end of the program, you'll develop a business growth plan to help you lead your business to realize its potential. To find out more about the program, the modules, eligibility, and fees and delivery dates, go to northumbria.ac.uk/help-to-grow.
You're listening to Why Small Business Matters. My name is Matt Sutherland, and today I'm talking to Craig Skillicorn, Managing Director of DDC Electronics and Northumbria Alumni. How is recruitment? You must be taking on new talent for these new projects. How's it going?
Yeah, it's a tough environment actually, recruitment at the moment. We're finding candidates that are getting 4 or 5 job offers. We do have the constraint of being on an island as well. So, our kind of target audience is more defined than in some organisations. And again, it's important that we sell this business when we're speaking to people as well. In terms of the culture that we're trying to create and the environment we want. One of the things we're trying to get across to candidates is this is a good place to come and work. It's not all about the salary. It's about the environment and the opportunities within the organisation as well. I'm just starting the recruitment process for someone else in my leadership team, and I was speaking to the recruiter last night and basically said, I'm going to trust that you're going to put in front of me people who can all do the job, because why would you put someone in front of me that can't do the job? So my part of this process is who fits our culture, and again the challenge of that is you've got to fit 2 cultures. You've got to fit our small business on the Isle of Wight culture, and you've got to fit in our American owner culture. And in the leadership positions here, you've got to have the kind of organisational flexibility to be able to do both. So that's a big part of recruitment for me is someone who fits.
So you're right. The skills seem to be a little bit secondary then, because they could come, can't they? And they can be moulded and trained. But actually, the culture and the fit seem to be really important in doing that. Do you have anyone working remotely at the moment? Of course, because remote working, this hybrid approach is still very much a tradition. It's in vogue. We see even small businesses offering hybrid working. Is that something that you're doing at DDC?
Yeah, so at the moment we're not. We had a lot of people working from home during the different stages of lockdown. At the moment, everybody is back on site virtually full time, with the odd day working from home. It's actually another challenge of recruitment. We're in a lot of the office-based and some of the senior roles we're looking for, we know that kind of organisations competing for that talent are offering a more hybrid opportunity than we are, and we may move there. I think again, just to go back to my common theme, I recruited someone in the team fairly recently, and the conversation with them around that working from home model is if we're gonna really push the people side of this, you have to be in the same room. So we have to be on site 4 or 5 days a week to build that kind of people-oriented environment. You can't, I don't know how you can do that if you're all in different places. It's so much harder.
Yeah, so there might be flexibility sort of in the medium or even longer term, but at this point of time, actually being in the building is really important, both for the culture and the direction of the business.
Yeah, it is for me. It's about like in any organisation. In any organisation, this place is full of them and us, and it's them and us in multiple directions. There's loads of thems, there's loads of us's, and how you break that down is by being in the same space as each other and understanding each other and talking to each other and listening to each other. And that's just so much easier when you're physically right. I'm just gonna walk downstairs and I'm just gonna walk through the factory and I'm gonna see how people are getting on. I'm gonna chat to people. I'm gonna listen to them. That's so much more of a challenge if I'm in my house somewhere else, sat at the kitchen table and they're sat at their dining room table. It's just so much harder to do.
You've got a recent example of this, haven't you, with your newly appointed commercial director, and this is somebody you've brought in who didn't necessarily have years worth of experience in the aerospace sector. Can you tell me a little bit more about that appointment?
Yeah, that's right. So that was effectively me recruiting my replacement in that commercial director role. So we went through a lot of interviews and we narrowed it down to two people, and they both had different experiences. And there was a guy that got through to the final two who basically did what the job is already. He worked with the same kind of customers. His background was all in kind of aerospace sales, exactly like it looks for us. And there was a woman that was going through the interview process whose background is more aviation than aerospace, so more kind of airline based than aerospace company based, and didn't have the background to come in and just do the job in day one. And the decision making process there is as part of that kind of think like a business owner and trying to think long term. The most useful recruit for me on day one would have been to go with the person who could just come in and do it and get on with it. I could get on with my job and we move on. My view is that the other candidate was better for the short term as well, but the medium long term of this business. And this business in 3 years' time will be better for having made that recruitment decision versus the other one, which is not a risky move, but you have to accept that it's going to be harder in the first 6 months because it's going to be better in the next 1-2 years. And that was collectively as a leadership team, that was the right thing for us to do, and just fit that culture of the skills can be developed. You find the right person that fits for the long-term growth of the business. It's really important.
What I like about listening to you, Craig, is that your head must be full constantly. You're always thinking about evolving this business and the next thing. I wonder what will be going through your head in about 3 to 5 years' time. Do you think you'll still be having people at the core? Do you still be thinking about bringing those right people in to evolve and grow the business? Is this the blueprint you think you'll always be adopting?
It's a good question, and I guess as I go, I'm learning what my blueprint is. It's not that far from the truth, so I'm making this up as I go along. But if I feel like it's working and it feels like it's working for other people, then I'll keep doing it. I can't see in 3, 4 years, 5 years time that I have a different blueprint that's not people oriented. I just don't think that's me. And the other thing, this is sometimes work. In a work environment, you kind of not acting, but you're playing a role. But this for me is just me doing what. This is me genuinely doing what feels like the right thing to do and what feels fun and what feels like it works. And I can't see that. I can't see that changing. It's just a fundamental belief for me that work is something people should enjoy doing. And a successful business is delivered by having engaged, inspired people.
And you always attribute the big business, both private and public sector, for having those type of blueprints. And I'm sorry, I'm using that word a lot, but that kind of vision that to help with the culture. And I suppose you don't necessarily see small businesses putting so much emphasis on trying to bring those vision and values into the culture of the organisation, because usually you're firefighting, and you're a person down, and you're MD, but you're also answering the phone. So actually, to listen to your story today is really powerful. It really is.
Thank you. One of the big themes that I've been trying to get across to everybody as well is that firefighting. So everyone's firefighting. Everyone's got more work than they can cope with, and I think what a few people in the organisation are struggling with is, but I've got 100 problems, so I can't fix 100 problems, so I don't know what to do. So I have these little speech things that I get stuck on. And what I keep saying to everybody at the moment is our job is to make this month better than last month and next month better than this month. And that's it. Forget the 100 things, pick one Stop trying to think, how do we make this a perfect organisation? Because you'll go insane. And it'll break you because there's too much to do, because we're all overworked and we're all firefighting. Every day, how do I make this month better than last month? And how do I make next month better than this month? And if we all do that, 104 of us doing that every day, it'll be an amazing organisation.
I know on episode 1 of the Why Small Business podcast series, we met Ollie Barrett and Caroline Theobald, who talked about the importance of networks and only being one person away from the people who you want to meet and speak to next. If you were to have a cup of coffee and be able to sit down with anybody of your liking next week, who would that be? That's
a great question. So from in line with what I've been talking about from a business point of view, do you know Simon Sinek? Simon Sinek, the kind of start with why, the eaters eat last. Leaders eat last. His whole persona, his whole belief of this, how do you inspire people to do better and to do more? I love that. Like, so bought into all of that. And it'd be a fascinating person to spend an afternoon a cup of tea with.
It's interesting as well. If you told me yesterday that you graduated, was it 94, Craig? You graduated?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So if you were to, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if you were to reflect back to 1994 now, and you were to see yourself coming out of of Northumbria University, what would you want to tell that younger Craig? What lessons have you learned that you think you would love to know back then?
Yeah, I think what I would say to myself is go and make the most of all the opportunities that are going to come your way. Because working for a company like Rolls-Royce was just fantastic for that. The development that I got, they invested well in their people. I'd been there a few years and I was sent on a development program, and I had 2 weeks out in Malaysia. And we were getting training courses. We were getting these amazing, like, world-class speakers come and see us. And you get that because you're Rolls-Royce. So it just attracts people to come and do that. I'm visiting parts of the world that I'll never go to again, and very few people have gone to, and just making the most of that is really important, because like you said before, you just pick all that up as you're going. The advice I think I would give myself is kind of take note of all these opportunities and just take a little piece from each of them, because they're all going to be useful one day. They're all going to be part of kind of what you're going to end up.
Thank you so much to my guest, Craig Skillicorn. Join us next time, where we'll be talking to newly appointed head of the North East Chamber of Commerce, John McCabe, who will be talking about founding, developing and selling a small business. To find out more about how Northumbria University can work with your business and details about the new Help to Grow management scheme, please visit northumbria.ac.uk/help to grow.